My name is Judy Saunders and I am your current Society President. We've received 4 apologies for this evening from Tina Neve, Michael Smith, Michael Wally and Gary Martin. May I ask if there are any more known on the floor? No, thank you. Tonight's itinerary comprises 2 meetings, firstly covering the first 28 weeks of trading, followed by a special meeting of members to cover rule changes. You will have received copies of all the necessary paperwork when you signed in for the evening. The order of business will commence with Barry Wood, our Chief Executive Officer, who will provide an update of the trading performance in the first 28 weeks up to the 13th of August 2022. Following on, Brendan Smith, our newly appointed Chief Operating Officer, will present an insight into business developments. Then Kevin Bennett, our Head of Marketing and Membership, will update us on membership activity. Our Society Secretary, Ellen Treadwell, will then talk through the appointment of Rickard Luckin as our Society's auditors. We will be accepting questions throughout the evening, and for the benefit of all members present tonight, can I please ask that you approach one of the desks at the front or to either podium, or alternatively, raise your hand for a roving microphone to be brought to you. And please wait until you have one of those microphones before posing your questions. At the end of the initial meeting, we will pass on to our special meeting to consider the full rule amendment. So by the end of this evening, you should have an insight into challenges facing our cooperative, how we have fared within the first half of the year, our plans in place for the second half of the year and beyond, and how we have been supporting our communities. Now I'll hand you over to Barry for his report on the first half of 2022.
Good evening. At the risk of sounding like a media headline at the moment, the retail industry is going through one of the most difficult times that I can recall, mainly due to those headlines that we're seeing in our newspapers, on the TV, on a daily basis. Those economic challenges are creating turmoil in the retail industry. If we think back to the last time there was anything like what we're seeing in retail, it was back in 2008 and 2009, during a period known as the credit crunch, when retailers battled for like-for-like sales increases as consumers tightened their belts. And at that time, you recall, those consumers transferred their spending to the discounters, who fared particularly well during those few years. If we jump forwards 14 years to now, and we're once again seeing the discounters win in terms of like-for-like sales increases and growth in their market shares. And that's at the expense of the traditional retailers, like the co-ops, like the multiples, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, etc. And even some of the value end of those retailers, the likes of Morrison's, are also now struggling to grow sales year on year. However, not only on this occasion are we battling loss of market share as retailers and year-on-year sales decreases, but also at this time we're seeing operating costs rise at a rate unseen by many of us in our lifetime. I will, as we'll move through the financial performance this evening, provide a little bit more detail of the biggest cost increases that your society is facing, to begin to try and add some context around the half-year results that we're presenting tonight and you've got in the interim report. The challenges faced by the retailers can clearly be seen by the data being published by the Centre for Retail Research, which quantifies both the job losses and store closures over the first 9 months of this year. And that's split on this occasion between administration, so retailers going into administration, and what they're calling rationalisation. And in recent years, I can only ever recall these figures quoting the administration as CVAs. I can never recall rationalisation being split out. And I think that speaks volumes about those cost challenges that I've just referred to and we'll talk about later. The fact that retailers are now looking really hard at how they take cost out of their business and make sure that every area of their business is viable. You can see that the number of job losses and store closures for administration is roughly the same as it was last year, running at the same sort of level. But in terms of rationalisation, there are a lot more this year as people slim down their estates and get rid of those stores that are no longer viable or marginal. Those job cuts, those store closures, and indeed hits on profitability are playing out in the media. And we've just got a selection here of some of those that we've seen over recent months. Tesco's cutting head office jobs and raising pay for shop workers. Recruitment in the retail industry at the moment, and to be honest, not only in the retail industry, but we're seeing it in the travel industry as well, is particularly difficult. Why people are shying away from retail now, I don't know, but many retailers have raised hourly rates several times this year to try and attract staff into the business. We've got Morrison's profits plunging 50% due to the inflation. Sainsbury's warning of lower profits. Aldi's UK profits fall, which is particularly interesting given that we are seeing Aldi as one of those discounters that are increasing market share year on year. So I think that begins to show how tough it really is in the market. And then finally, just recently, a couple of weeks ago, Co-op Group published their half-year results where profits were slashed by 37 million as their sales flatlined. Earlier in the year, they announced 400 jobs losses to go at their head office. Co-op Group, from our point of view, is probably the biggest concern out of all of those. The group is the biggest part of the buying group that we belong to, and if they don't perform, then we all suffer. And I'll cover a bit of that when we talk about gross profit as we work through the results. So it's set against that backdrop that the board and the management present the half-year performance for your society. In the first 28 weeks of the financial year, our interim, the gross takings have increased year on year by 8.1%. And that's being driven mainly by the department stores and the travel businesses that were closed for the first 11 weeks of last year due to the COVID lockdown. Ordinarily, I'd be turning cartwheels, to be honest, at an 8.1% sales increase. But if you actually start to look at the underlying performance of our business, then it's a very different picture. So if you look at the 6-year performance, you can see that actually that 8.1 doesn't even begin to come close to cover what we lost through the COVID years. So in 2020, we had lockdown. In 2021, we had lockdown, and we had a very slow recovery in travel last year. So the 8.1 just shows that we haven't clawed back the volumes that we were doing in 2019. The core business of food is still struggling to recover from the shockingly poor on-shelf availability that we experienced in the second half of last year, which I reported back in May of this year at the AGM, where Co-op Group struggled to deliver adequate volume of products from their depots into not only our stores, but other independent societies up and down the country, as well as their own. It's my belief that that had a large impact on consumers' confidence in being able to come into our stores and get what they wanted on each shopping visit. And I think we're still today suffering from some of that damage that was done over that prolonged period from August last year through to January of this year. If we look at the business sectors in turn, food, year-on-year decrease of 2.8% in the first half of the year. The figure is being negatively impacted by a store disposal, the Mountbatten Road in Braintree in February last year, but it is only a negligible decrease. If we drill down further into the food, we can see a little bit more where that decrease is coming from. So the headline performance, 2.8% down, so that covers all of the tins, the packets and the service element, so the lottery and the bill payments pay point. The core category turnover, so that is the tins and packets, is down 3.4%, which when you put that against food inflation, which is approaching 10%, it gives you an idea of how much we're struggling. And indeed, you can see that in the volume, with the volume of product we're selling, down by 8.9% after the first half of the year compared to last year. The number one priority of the management team currently is rebuilding of that consumer confidence that we believe was lost last year in our food stores by focusing on the store standards, cleanliness, and obviously the on-shelf availability of our product. If we look at fuel is doing particularly well this year. Sales have increased 40.5%, and that's being driven by inflation in fuel price, as we saw at the beginning of the year when a litre of fuel was approaching the £2 mark. Although it's dropped back, it's still higher than last year. And also, more encouragingly, volume is also up. Two reasons: A, lockdown beginning of last year, which would have impacted the comparatives for this year, but also, as we've gone through this year, we've continued to build volume in most periods. So an encouraging performance from fuel in the one petrol station. Department stores, an impressive figure of 87.8%, but again, shut for the first 11 weeks of last year. So those comparatives are very low. The strategy in our department stores continues to be to reduce the level of trading losses that we are recording each year. We continue to seek new and exciting fashion brands to add the variety to our stores, but with a number of major brands that have disappeared from the high street in recent years, this continues to be difficult. However, the department store team have done an excellent job this year of attracting more brands into our stores, not of the level of the Arcadia brands that perhaps we once had, the Miss Selfridge, the Top Shop, the Wallace, but they are numerous brands that have come in, and Brendan will update you on some of those brand names later in his presentation. The board and management continue to review closely the department store's operation. We continue to explore options to minimise the risk that this business presents to the society over the longer term, given the losses it's incurring. Our funeral business has generated year-on-year increase in gross takings of 10.2%, being driven by an increase in market share from not only the existing estate, but also additional business from the new branch in Basildon. The gross takings in our investment property have grown in the first half by 19.1%, with all our commercial properties now having tenants. If we turn to our gross profit or our income, it's risen year on year 5.8%, but again, comparatives were low last year for the reasons previously given. During times of high inflation, not only from the manufacturers of the products that we sell on to our consumers, but also from the suppliers of the services to the society and the goods not for resale, the management of our gross profit has become even more important, and a great deal of time has been invested this year to ensure that we get the careful balance between passing on the inflationary cost from the manufacturers, but also while remaining competitive in a market where price is becoming more key than ever. Operating costs have increased year on year by £1,095,000. That's a 9.6% increase in cost. And if we go back to that slide, we're talking about gross profit have increased just by 5.8%, and those operating costs increasing by 9.6%, which gives you an indication of where the pressure is becoming on the trading profit. The main drivers in the increase of operating costs in the first half were utility costs, primarily electricity, which increased year on year by £249,000. Our distribution costs, so this is the cost that we pay to Co-op Group to have goods delivered into our store, increased by £117,000. And you've got to remember that that's an increase of £117,000 on 8.9% less product going through our stores. So the cost per case has gone up substantially, well in excess of 10% year on year. Business rates last year, we had relief due to the COVID pandemic. This year, business rates are £404,000 higher than last year because of that relief. In addition, labour costs have increased by £289,000 as a result mainly of the 6.6% increase in the national living wage in April of this year. Those four elements I've just quoted have increased year on year combined by £1,059,000. That's 96.71% of the total increase in operating costs. So four elements are a large chunk of the cost. What it does demonstrate is the underlying cost base, those ones that we can impact day in and day out, have been very much kept under control and increases at a minimum. The Society's cost to income ratio has therefore risen substantially from last year at 96.38 to this year of 99.15. We continue to keep a tight rein on the operating costs to ensure that no unnecessary costs are incurred, and your board continues to review performance on a 4-weekly basis. There's no evidence to suggest that in the short term this pressure on operating costs will fall. And with a potential increase in the national living wage next year at the highest level we may have seen yet in the history of the national living wage, management are already looking at how this can be absorbed while rebuilding the profitability. The high level of operating cost increases and the volume decrease in food has led to a drop in trading profit to £113,000, a drop of £346,000 or 75%. The core food business is the largest weakness at the trading profit level, driven by those volume decreases, the increased energy costs, the higher distribution costs, and lower annual rebates from the FRTS buying group. That goes back to the comment I made about Co-op Group needing to perform for independents to perform. Because they're about not 80% of the volume going through the buying group, if their volume falls, combined with all of ours, then the central rebates that we get from suppliers for stocking their products falls also. And we've seen a large fall this year in that central income. In department stores, encouragingly, in the first half, the loss from department stores fell by 55%. And that's the lowest level for many years from our department stores. The improvement in department stores is mainly due to the action that we took as we come out of the pandemic to reduce the cost base in that part of our business, given that we were anticipating lower level of gross takings, mainly through the loss of Arcadia, and expecting a slow recovery in the department stores business, as many other operators have seen. At the net profit before distributions level, the Society has recorded a profit of £124,000, 78% or £451,000 lower than last year. On paper, the Society continues to show no debt, as a reasonably strong cash balance is currently held, and also combined with the paying down of loans over the last year. The value of members' funds has risen from £13,659,000 last year to £15,098,000 this year. Accordingly, the reserves have also increased to £6,425,000 from the £4,478,000 last year. As you can see from the figures, the first half of the year has been extremely challenging. I think it's fair to say that the second half at the moment looks like it's going to be equally challenging. We currently await more information to understand how the government's intervention on energy prices will assist the society, if indeed it does. The reason I make that comment is we're not sure, because most of the electricity has been bought in advance, a hedge position, we're not sure that actually we're going to benefit, because there's a chance that the government's unit rate of 21.1 could actually be above what we've hedged the position on. So hopefully that gives you an overview of the first half performance. I'll hand over to Brendan Smith, Chief Operating Officer, to go through the business developments in the first half of the year.
Okay, good evening. And as you've heard from Barry, the challenges that the retail environment are facing are unprecedented. But I'm pleased to say that our society is proactively looking at ways to grow and evolve our business. So within the first 28 weeks of the year, we've opened our new branch in Basildon in our funeral department. As you can see from the pictures there, you know, the branch has benefited from an extensive refurbishment, and there's the picture of the formal opening. And then after a slow start, I'm pleased to say that the branch is now generating some positive income and interest. But we haven't just focused on bricks and mortar. So the society is evolving and exploring and expanding into online trading. So for a while now, we've traded in our food business with the Snappy Shopper platform in 2 stores. I'm pleased to say that that's been extended now to 13, and we're hoping for positive results from that. But it isn't just food. So within our Quadrant stores, we're now looking to trade an online Quadrant cook shop, and I'm pleased to say that that actually goes live tomorrow morning. Within our travel business, in the near future, we'll be trading online. We'll be offering European holidays. There'll be deposits from £60 per person, local flights from Stansted. It includes transfers and 22 kilograms worth of luggage as standard. As you'd expect from the business, it's ATOL and ABTA protected. And then what you also get, in addition to the online, you get the benefit of the support from our in-store branch teams. So business development's continued. So community hubs. So as part of the opportunity to develop our stores into community hubs, we're looking to extend our range of services into the stores. So you can see there that in the near future we'll be installing Amazon lockers and every parcels collection points and drop-off points into our stores. What this does, it drives footfall. It's added service to our members and customers, but it also generates some income for the stores as well. New in-store, so cover off most of the departments here. So department stores, as Barry has alluded to earlier, the team there have really gone out and worked hard to introduce some new brands into both stores. So Sugar Lane will be introduced into Chelmsford and Braintree. Apricot will be introduced into Chelmsford and Braintree. Douglas and Graham will go live in Chelmsford, and Guide will go live in Chelmsford. So the team are really working hard to evolve that fashion brand. Our food stores, as I said, Barry mentioned there that they're struggling, so what we're trying to do is create interest and add new ranges, and just to make that sort of shopping environment more interesting and relevant to where we are today. So we are replacing our in-store coffee offering, so from the Lavazza brand, and we're going live with the Pret Express brand. And I'm pleased to say we're only one of a handful of retailers that have managed to secure that in the business or in the country. So we are one of, I think, 2 or 3 retailers that have got that currently. And then one of the other things that we're looking at, really proactively looking at, is the right range, right store approach. So over the last 2 years, people's shopping habits have changed significantly. So what we are doing now is ranging our stores based on shopping habits, trends and affluence. And we believe that this will bring added benefit to our stores as, as we get the right range for the right store. And then really as a co-op you'd expect us to do this, so we believe this is doing the right thing. So in July this year we partnered with Too Good To Go. Too Good To Go is an app-based international app that provides a service to reallocate waste food to customers. So we've joined with a number of other major retailers, Morrison's and a number of most of the independent cooperative societies. Restaurants and bakers are also involved, so Greggs, Harvester, Starbucks, they're all involved in it. What it involves really is the food that is going out of date today will be bagged, will be loaded onto the app, and they'll be available for people to purchase at a third of the retail price. So we've set our retail at £3, so the original value is £10. It's purchased via the app, and again then the customers and members come into store and collect. So again, it's driving footfall into store, and it basically adds to, there's an opportunity then to facilitate additional top-up shopping. And just some headline numbers really. So this is up to last Monday. So from the society stores since July, we've managed to save 3,373 meals, 8.4 tonnes of CO2, to boost our online presence. So now there's 3,682 customers that have stored Chelmsford Star Co-op on the app as their favourite, and the customer rating is 4.1 out of 5. So I think so far it's been a really good news story for the business.
Good evening, everybody. God, you're a quiet lot today, aren't you? Right, hi there, everyone. So I'm here today to talk about the membership and the community update. Let's zip through this fairly quickly, see if you can keep up with me. One of the priorities for my team in the first half of this year was to get back out there. The whole very nature of a co-op is to be a community organisation, and quite frankly we've missed being out in the community for the last couple of years. So it's been wonderful to be able to demonstrate that this is what we do and to get back out there. And we've done that in a number of ways. Since I last reported to you in the spring, we've been re-establishing relationships with organisations, working back at the heart of the neighbourhoods that we serve, to remind people what we do and why we're there. Our shops have had their own community budget. They've been able to support their own local groups, any events near them. A few of the groups are listed, but there have been many more. And what we've got quite good at recently is when we can't do something on our own, we've connected people together who can. So, for example, we brought together some beneficiaries of our community fund, and we found unexpected ways that they could help each other out. We brought together the Braintree Food Bank with the George Yard Shopping Centre and the Braintree Council, and found new ways of supporting struggling families in the area. We've worked collaboratively with different groups to clean up parks and streets. And a very interesting example of this, one of my favourites, was when we worked with a local museum and a local council on a big co-op clean-up and created Litter Picking Through History. This was an event that saw a wide area of Braintree Town Centre cleaned up during a historic walking tour. It was a very interesting afternoon. It was informative, it got us out there, lots of people saw us and could see what we're up to, and we'll definitely be doing things like that again. It was a great example of groups working together and cooperation at its finest. And these clean-up events have been a good way of getting back in touch with some of the local schools too and youth organisations. We've had several environmental days over the warmer months. We've cleaned up parks and school fields in a number of areas across Essex. keeping with that younger demographic. The return of the Little Legs Festival in Braintree meant we were working on healthy eating campaigns again. We handed out fruit to over 600 families. Nothing went to waste because anything that we had left over fed the donkeys at the Remus Horse Sanctuary in Gallywood, and they had a very good afternoon as well. For older students, we've been providing mentoring and career advice through initiatives such as World of Work Day. We've sponsored the environmental and the sustainability categories at the annual Young Enterprise Awards, and we've worked with various partners to promote the Co-op name at other events such as Freshers' Fairs. And I'm pleased to announce a new partnership with Essex Youth Services, specifically an arm of them called the Young Essex Assembly. Together we have formed a new youth council for Chelmsford Star. The Assembly is made up of young people that have been voted for and elected by their peers from schools across the county. We'll be meeting on a regular basis and listening to their voice and putting what's important to them in front of those that work at Chelmsford Star. And after our first couple of meetings, we already had some success. The council highlighted a real issue of period poverty in some areas of the county. We helped set up an area at a youth centre where products were available for free, and this is now permanently in place. This is now funded by members of the community themselves. Other issues high on their agenda are knife crime, cyberbullying, and a range of environmental topics, which we'll be looking at over the next year. Two youth groups also benefited from grants coming out of our community fund. We were particularly impressed with the North Avenue Youth Centre. They're doing some very close-up work with the police and working collaboratively with young people at risk of getting targeted by gangs. Rickard Green was another good beneficiary, and a host of other great causes from across Essex has also been supported by the fund since the start of the year, working with elderly groups, the disabled, the homeless and the desperate. Each cause has been handpicked by Co-op members in our membership committee. And all of this, as many of you will be aware, works out as the following. 31p in every £1 that is spent in our shops is reinvested into the areas around Essex. The more members we have using our stores, the more we can do for the community. So it's great to say that we have over 1,000 new members joining us at the halfway point of the year. Each of them are very welcome. As you would expect, this means also that more of the society's trade is coming from members, and they're all spending a little bit more money on average when they shop also. Members continue to receive a range of money off vouchers, such as those in our Starlight magazines, emailed offers, their annual dividend payout, and the chance to win back their shopping through our bonus basket prize draw. Our twice-weekly coffee mornings are back up to full strength in the Quadrant stores after their hiatus in the pandemic. Julie over there has been working particularly hard on those. There's been more speakers and fun activities than ever before. In fact, I think our calendar's full up till January now, isn't it? And having been put on hold, our member days are also taking place once again. We have 2 more scheduled up in the next couple of months. If you fancy cruising along the Norfolk Broads or wine tasting in the historic town of Battle, we have something for you. It's at a discounted rate. Call the membership number for more information. And hot off the press, as of this morning, we have an extra opportunity for members. We are planting, in honour of Her Majesty the Queen, 200 trees in Highlands Park in part of the memorial. Well, it was the Platinum Jubilee Queen's Canopy, but it will now be memorialised. If anyone is interested in joining us, there are limited spaces, but get in touch. On the 16th of December, we will be planting trees for the Queen. Now, last time I talked to you all at the AGM, I talked about another member benefit to be the members portal. We were halfway through extensive tests at that stage to make sure that everything worked. We wanted to make sure that no matter your phone or tablet or Windows version, you wouldn't be getting any issues. Yes, it would be a source of more money off vouchers, specifically personalised to you, but it was also a great place to go to update your details, to order replacement cards, leave feedback, donate points to our community fund, etc. I am pleased to say that this will also be going live tomorrow, so it's quite easy to find. Just head to our website, go to the members area in the top bar and click register. You just need your membership number and surname. Hopefully you know your surname. If you don't know your membership number, then give us a call and we will get it to you. But it's on your card, so. So tonight you've heard quite a few initiatives happening across the society. Some of them are new for us. It's all exciting. It's going to be an interesting journey for our members. So my challenge over the next few months is to make sure that we don't lose anyone along the way. I need to make sure that with all the new initiatives we're introducing, members who are not only joining our society, but trying us in different ways, who are shopping with us in different ways, who are finding us in different ways, are all carried along for the ride too and aren't left behind. And that's my challenge, and I guess I'll be letting you know how I get on at the AGM. And I've noticed I'm the only one with a question slide. So if anyone has any questions about any of the presentations you've seen, perhaps I can offer myself as compare. Has anyone got any questions? Okay.
Yeah, Malcolm Wallace, are you taking them from the report as well, the written report?
I will direct you to someone who will take
Okay,
those questions.
well, I'll throw out 3 and whoever's responsible can take a note. First of all, the online shopping arrangements and the new shopper delivery service, in the past the society's always been very reluctant to get into that, and I'd just like to know what its strategy is. I mean, is it perhaps a lack of expertise in building that further, or is it a step-by-step process? The second question is, how do we relate to the rest of the other societies at this particular time? Are we about the same as the others, or stepping behind, or maybe marginally in front?
What's your third question?
And pardon?
What's your next one?
And the third one is, in the report, it refers to the movement of staff. Now, I know that problem exists in every industry at the moment. It's obviously worrying to a lot of people, but does the society keep a register of why people leave, and has it identified anything that's particularly different? You know, is it health? Is it pay, conditions of service? You know, does anything particularly concern us as far as the society is concerned, rather than other industries?
There we go. Barry's earning his money. Thank you.
Nobody else was jumping up, so I thought I'd answer him. The snappy shopper, in terms of the online trading, what held us back for a long time was, I think, a lot of retailers made it very common knowledge that they weren't making money from it. And to develop a system or a platform for it was going to take a lot more financial resource that we could throw at it and then make a loss. I think over the last few years, there's been a lot of, we've seen Deliveroo, there's Uber, there's all of those that are now delivering a platform for you. We looked at Deliveroo some time ago, and it was tempting because it's a brand name that everybody knows, and I think they associate Deliveroo with that almost instant shopping. The problem with Deliveroo is, we had worries about the ethical side, because I think there'd been some reports that drivers weren't earning minimum wage and that sort of stuff. So that worried us. And also, to really make money out of Deliveroo, you have to have a price premium. So we'd be charging online through Deliveroo a higher price than we would in our shops, and that just didn't sit right with me if our members wanted to use it. That we then come across the Snappy platform, which other societies were using, and that addressed all of our concerns in terms of minimum wages are fine. The drivers all earn that. We've been assured of that. We've seen their policy. And you could sell at the same price as on shelves. Or you could put it up if you want. But it made sense to actually be able to do that and hopefully make some money. Is it a rip-roaring success? No. Are we disappointed? Yes. One of the changes we did make, when we were just running it in 2 stores, we were doing the delivery ourselves. And that was going to be cost prohibitive to roll it out to further stores. So it would be a van for every store, and that was just going to get silly. So we've now partnered with a company called Gopher that do that last mile delivery, not just for grocery retailers. They do the likes of Screwfix for their hour delivery and all sorts. So we're now using those across the estate. We switched to using them when we went to the 15 stores from the 2. We had to make some compromise on distance that we could serve to get the hour delivery, and that's probably, it's impacted the volume that we've been doing out of the 2 existing stores. So we're still not making money from it. So we've now 4 or 5 weeks in from using Gopher and extending the scale. So now we're going back, reviewing that, right, what did we do wrong, what did we do right, how do we push it up to the next level? So at the moment it's still very much under review. Whether we stay in that market, we don't know. It's got to break even. I'm not sure, we're ever going to make a profit out of it. I know Tesco's are just about breaking even on their Whoosh, which is their instant delivery out of their express stores. But they've obviously got a lot more scale than we can ever had. So it will never make us rich, but what we don't want to do is lose money from it. It needs to be a proposition and add to that list of benefits that both our members and our normal shoppers can have.
What about the online shopping thing?
The department stores. That's the investment in that platform wasn't massive. It was reasonable, and that's about part of that strategy as to how, in a market which is declining in terms of is department stores. We all know department stores, unless you're the Harrods, the Harvey Nicks, etc. I think they've had their day. We've seen Debenhams go. We've seen House of Frasers struggle and continue to struggle. So it's a case of how can we try and hit a wider audience to try and reduce those losses? Because in theory, there's no additional operating costs of selling Cookshop initially online. If that works, we'll extend it hopefully quite quickly to soft furnishings, potentially seasonal at Christmas. So it's all just extra income for that minimal, well, I wouldn't say minimal outlay, it was expensive, but just a space that we feel we need to be in at the moment while we've still got 2 department stores. Turning to your second question about the other independent societies, recalling the figures off the top of my head, there is no society at the moment that is generating any big volume decreases, with the exception of possibly the Co-op group. The reason why they're showing an increase at the moment is because during COVID they shut a great deal of their city centre stores because nobody was going into city centres. So their centre of London stores, they just shut. So obviously now they're getting volume over and above what they got last year when people were working from home for any period of time, and then also just going to the office a couple of days a week. So they're getting volume increase from there. But every other independent is down. We are down more than the rest, and I put that down to 2 things. When I look back over the 3-4 years, we got larger volume increases during COVID than they did, than the other societies did. And I think now we've just lost a little bit more because of A, that, high comparatives, and B, the distribution issues at the second part of last year. So while Group struggled to deliver product to shops, their worst depot was the Thurrock depot. We are the only society in the whole country where all of its stores were serviced by Thurrock. So we had the worst service level of all independent societies, and every store was impacted. So we saw every store struggling to get volume growth because it couldn't get the products. Whereas a lot of the other societies were serviced from 2, 3 or 4 depots. So they might have had a small area of stores suffer from Thurrock, but anything coming out of, I don't know, Wellingborough was fine. So that really has hurt us. We addressed that issue with them this year when they were struggling earlier in the year when it was getting silly, and we've had we've had about 15 stores now. 15 of our 39 stores are now coming out of Biggleswade. So we've got split risk now, and that's certainly helped us when they were struggling earlier part of the year. In terms of staff retention, colleague retention, I think I know every member of staff that leave gets an exit interview or form. Whether they fill it in is a different matter. Where our biggest issue is at the moment, or has been, touch wood, as of today it's not too bad, has been in food store management. Most of the leavers at the management level have left for, let's call it work-life balance. Convenience retailing isn't easy. You're working potentially 5 o'clock in the morning, you're still open at 11 o'clock at night in a number of stores. Trying to keep that going if you've got sickness can be tough. So occasionally managers do need to work from 5 in the morning to 11 at night, purely to keep a shop open. That's the exception rather than rule, but it does happen. And that doesn't just happen in our stores, it happens in convenience retailing, full stop. When you look at the reasons some managers have left, we've had managers, good managers, leave from being a manager to us and step down to be a duty manager or a team leader in a discounter because A, it's closer to home, and B, there's no responsibility. So they're taking pay cuts to ensure that they know they've got no responsibility and they can go home at the end of their shift without having to think, well, I can't go home because I need to keep a store open. So that's been a big part of it, and I think COVID's probably made people think more about that work-life balance. So that's the big challenge in food. Travel is another big challenge that we're still struggling today on recruitment in travel. And I think that is purely because so many people in the travel industry lost their jobs back in 2020, be it for furlough and then made redundant, and that travel industry still hasn't recovered, that people are very wary if they left the industry and have got perhaps a job that's got more security, thinking, do I want to go back to that given my experience? Rates of pay, he referenced. Certainly in terms of food store management, we are more than competitive in rates of pay. I think if you start looking at general assistant level, we're not as competitive as the Tesco's, Sainsbury's, who have just cranked their rates up to try and attract people. So most of them now are probably over the £10 an hour. We don't struggle attracting general assistants, and the last figure I quoted, we had people that had been approved through the screening process at general assistant level. We have over 200 people that are interested in jobs and we've approved for a job. But it's not that level we struggle with. We might struggle in certain stores. Dagenham's one that springs to mind. We don't seem to attract anybody down there. But in general, there's a lot of people that have applied, been approved, and are waiting for a vacancy to come up in their preferred store to use that. So hopefully, Malcolm, that answers the questions. Okay. I'll stay here just in case there's any more questions. No more. Okay. In that case, then I will hand back. No, I will hand to Ellen.
Okay, good evening. The board is proposing the reappointment of Rickard Luckin as the Society's audit partner. The audit committee this year, in line with good governance, conducted a tender process for the audit partner. Several audit firms were invited to tender for the contract and 2 firms were invited to present to the audit committee. The audit committee felt that Rickard Luckin remained a good fit for the Society and can provide the level of service and expertise required. It should, however, be noted that the audit partner will be rotated. So for approval of the auditor to be Rickard Luckin requires a majority vote of members present. Therefore, can I ask for a member to propose Rickard Luckin as auditors? Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. And finally, can I have a show of hands in favour? Against? Abstain? Thank you very much. The motion passed. I will pass you to Judy for the closing remarks of the interim meeting.
That completes the initial business for tonight. And as we complete the first part of our evening, may I thank you all for joining us this evening.